welcome to Connexeus 2025 Talk Series Dominica Edition. I am Dr. Kimon Joseph, head of UWI Global Campus in Dominica, and your chair for this evening. We welcome Her Excellency Majorzata Wasilewska and her delegation. She's the ambassador to Barbados and the Caribbean of the European Union. We also welcome Ms. Michelle Joseph, who is the marketing manager at the National Bank of Dominica Limited. The EU and the National Bank are our collaborators for this venture. Our presenters are Dr. Phaedria Marie St, who is being supported by Professor Morten Meldal. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening to you all. I have prepared a special welcome through a video that I'd like to show you. So we'll begin with this. Hello and welcome to UWI Global Campus in Dominica. We are pleased to be part of the Bridges of Innovation series, which is done in collaboration with the European Union and the National Bank of Dominica. For Dominica's leg of the series, ours is entitled Unlocking Caribbean Potential Through Angel and Impact Investing. And we are pleased to have Dr. Phaedria Marie St and Professor Morten Meldal, who will be our presenters. We welcome them to Dominica and we look forward to the exciting presentations. This talk forms part of the National Distinguished Lecture Series, which is one of our 3 lecture series each academic year in Dominica. We are always happy to be able to have members of the public come in to UWI and to be able to listen to researchers to share their work and then to be able to engage in meaningful conversation. This forms part of our mandate for non-formal education, and we are super excited about this evening's presentation. UWI Global Campus is committed to quality teaching and learning exercises. We offer a wide range of courses and programs in continuing and professional education, undergraduate and graduate levels. We delight in providing opportunities for our Caribbean people to be more self-sustaining and resilient. We enjoy when our students can look back at the opportunities they have been afforded with and say, I am happy that I made the decision to come to UWI. And so we welcome all who are interested in making a better life through quality education to join our courses and programs and to be part of the UWI family. It is an honor for us at the Global Campus Dominica site to be included in this Bridges of Innovation Talk series. We're especially grateful to the European Union and our partners at the National Bank of Dominica Limited for coming on board and ensuring that the program is a success. We look forward to working with both groups well into the future. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I now invite Ms. Michelle Joseph, who is the marketing manager at the National Bank of Dominica Limited, to say a few words on behalf of the National Bank. Michelle?
Thank you, Dr. Joseph. Good evening, everyone. It is both a pleasure and an honor to be here on behalf of the National Bank of Dominica Limited at this important gathering, the Bridges of Innovation Connexeus Talk Series. We thank the University of the West Indies Global Campus and the European Union for hosting this initiative, which continues to spark dialogue and innovation across our region. To all in attendance in person and via UWI-TV, we extend a very warm welcome. At NBD, we have always believed that the future of our nation rests in the creativity, resilience, and determination of its people. And nowhere is it more evident than in our entrepreneurs and small business owners. These men and women are not only vital contributors to the GDP, but they are problem solvers, community builders, and catalysts for sustainable development. They are, in every sense, the drivers of a more inclusive and resilient Dominica. We are also mindful of the persistent challenges many small and medium-sized enterprises face: limited access to finances, gaps in business education, and unfamiliarity with formal banking requirements continue to strain the growth and potential of many promising ventures. It is for that reason that NBD has taken a bold and strategic step forward. We are proud to announce the launch of our Small Business Unit, SBU, a dedicated division within the bank focused exclusively on empowering SMEs. Set to launch in June 2025, the SBU will provide personalized support, access to financial tools, and business development guidance tailored to the specific needs of entrepreneurs, whether you're just starting out, navigating growing pains, or scaling for broader impact. This initiative reflects our core belief that unlocking the potential of our entrepreneurs is not just good business. It's essential for national progress, and we cannot do it alone. We value partnerships with institutions like UE, government agencies, and development partners who share our vision for inclusive economic growth. Tonight's lecture, entitled Empowering Caribbean Entrepreneurs Through Inclusive Investments and Leadership Development, speaks directly to this vision. We commend Dr. St. Hilaire for her commitment to advancing entrepreneurial ecosystems and look forward to the insights she will share. As a cornerstone of Dominica's financial landscape, MBD is dedicated to fostering long-term economic empowerment, positioning ourselves as collaborators and catalysts for growth. Together, let us continue to invest in people, nurture innovation, and unlock the vast potential of our small business sector. One idea, one enterprise, one entrepreneur at a time. Thank you and best wishes for an engaging and impactful evening.
Thank you very much, Michelle. And now we'll have remarks from Ambassador Vasilevska, and this has been prepared in the form of a video. Has it? Oh, she's coming to the front. Oh, all right. I invite Ambassador Vasilevska to come forward to give her remarks.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to UE for hosting this event, and thank you to our distinguished guests for finding the time to come to the region. I won't be as good as a video. However, what I will say is deeply felt by all of us in the European Union delegation. So, bridges of innovation, because we will try in the coming months and years to build bridges between the people of the Caribbean and people of European Union, precisely in the area of innovation, science, collaboration, opening access to technology, and building on the best of the people in both our region, on your talent, on our science, on our technical ability, on connections with private sector. And I could not, so Connexeus 2025 is about bringing scientists, innovators, if we're lucky, more Nobel Prize winners to the region to explore exactly that. And who better than one of your own distinguished talents, Dr. St. Hilaire, who I think understands better than anybody else what are the opportunities, what are the connectors, what is it that we can bring from the European Union to Dominica and to the Caribbean region. So I love this logo because it's not as good as what you're going to see from Professor Meldal on how he was moving the molecules and what came out of it, but it exemplifies a little bit the possibilities if we are jointly creative, innovative, and if we really tap into these possibilities. And I'm sure all of you will agree with me that there isn't enough of this collaboration between the Caribbean and Europe. We are far away. I think often you think we don't speak English, apart from the UK. That is why many of you only think of academic collaboration opportunities to study either undergraduate or postgraduate in the English-speaking country. We still have Ireland. Most of us do speak English, and in most of our countries you can do undergraduate, postgraduate studies in English, and they will offer you opportunities that are very different and new in many ways. They will lead to new collaboration, new partnerships, and you will hear from our distinguished guests some examples of what this can create. So very happy to be in Dominica. We already hosted our scientists in Barbados, had lots of interesting discussions, explored opportunities. They met with Prime Minister today. I've yet to learn exactly what was asked and what was promised, but we will be very happy as European Union to support whatever we can, and we look forward to more of these visits and hopefully to continued collaboration with both of you with the region. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Tonight's presentation is entitled Unlocking Caribbean Potential Through Angel and Impact Investing, and it will be presented by Dr. Phaedria Marie St, who will be supported by Professor Morten Meldal. Before we begin, we have a video presentation for you that introduces our speakers.
Dr. Phaedria Marie St. Hilaire is a Dominican-born scientist, corporate leader, career coach, and business angel investor. Her experience in the pharmaceutical and biotechnology sectors spans more than 20 years. Dr. St. Hilaire is a fierce advocate of diversity and inclusion and has been working tirelessly towards a more inclusive and equitable future in business and innovations.
Women are treated differently, but not just women. If you are a brown person, if you are not from Denmark, then there's a tendency that you can be undervalued. And I thought that was not really fair. And when something is not fair, then you have to do something about it.
Dr. St. Hilaire is also a business angel investor. Since learning that women and minorities receive less than 1% of venture capital funding, she's committed to helping these groups gain access to capital and opportunities. For her efforts in June 2023, Dr. St. Hilaire was recognized as one of the 10 most inspiring female angel investors in Denmark. Professor Morten Meldal is a Danish chemist, widely recognized for his pioneering work in organic and peptide chemistry. He was awarded the 2022 Nobel Prize in Chemistry for the development of click chemistry and bioorthogonal chemistry. The professor is particularly renowned for independently developing the copper-catalyzed azide-alkyne cycloaddition. This highly efficient chemical reaction has revolutionized several fields.
The copper-catalyzed click chemistry is used everywhere. It's like sort of a crown jewel because it's used in material sciences, it's used in surface modifications, it's used in all sorts of medicinal chemistry today.
Professor Meldal has also made significant advances in areas such as solid phase synthesis and combinatorial chemistry. Throughout his career, he has remained dedicated to both research and teaching, mentoring numerous young scientists and contributing to the advancement of sustainable and accessible chemical methods.
Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Dominica's own Dr. Phaedria Marie St, our primary speaker for this evening's event.
Good evening, everyone. I'm waiting for my slides. But while my slides are coming, I want to say a very warm welcome to you, distinguished guests. in particular Ambassador Małgorzata Wasilewska. Finally, I learned how to say her name. I've just been calling her Gosha. And to you, Ms. Michelle from the NDB, and Dr. Kimon Joseph from the UWI Global Campus. And to you online, a very warm welcome. I feel incredibly humbled and privileged to be here today to speak to you as part of the EU Connexeus project. And as was said earlier, this is a project that has the purpose to build and strengthen ties between the EU and the Caribbean. And with the major challenges that we face, collaboration and partnership is so important. The challenges that we face, they are so huge, we cannot do it alone, especially as small island nation states. And therefore, it is imperative that we find ways that we capitalize on the opportunities to collaborate with the EU, but also with each other. More and more, I know there's some free movement in the Caribbean, but I think we need to do more. We need to collaborate more. Our governments need to reduce any barriers that are so that we can be seen as one Caribbean, one nation. And so what I want to talk about today, what I will talk about today, is how we can unlock the immense potential there is in the Caribbean. And I will do that by providing some examples from what is done in Denmark, and some of them are very applicable to the Caribbean and to Dominica and to Barbados. Because believe it or not, everything is relative, and Denmark is a small nation too, right? In Europe, it's only 5 million, the UK is 60 million, Germany is about 80 million. So my talk will focus more on the commercial aspects, especially angel investing and the funding. And I will be supported by Professor Morten in the talk, because another very key component of driving innovation and feeding the entrepreneurial ecosystem is having a solid education, particularly an education in STEM. Research has shown that companies or countries that invest heavily in STEM education can increase their GDP by 1% every year. So it's a component that should not be underestimated. And again, it speaks to the fact that we do need to have partnerships. We need to have partnerships between the educational system, between the government, and the private industry, much as the bank NDB is supporting the event today. We need to have more of this and work together. So I will start my talk by saying this is my mother, Milena St. Hilaire. And Milena St. Hilaire was a woman who didn't drink. She would have one glass of wine, she would get sleepy and dizzy and go to bed. So imagine our surprise as her children when she retired from teaching at the tender age of 54, she went into the wine business. She started making wines and selling them. Now, she was not a scientist. She knew nothing about making wines, but she did her research, she read a lot, she experimented, and her driving force, or the reason for making wines, was that she felt that as a country, we should not be importing wines that are made from grapes, because grapes don't go in the Caribbean. So her specialty was making wines made from sweet potato, from grapefruit, from orange, from sugar cane. And that's what she did. And eventually, at first it was just selling to, giving to friends and families as gifts. And eventually she was selling at Schillingford's and Astafans. Well, I'd love to say that my mother's business grew, and eventually it spread to other islands and became a global brand. But it did not. And when I reflect on it, some of the factors were the fact that the technology was not there. One of the issues that she faced was the clarification of the wine. How do you do it properly? And sometimes her wine at the supermarkets, they would have to call her to recall it because you would have some sedimentation. Marketing, she didn't know anything about marketing. I mean, there was no marketing at all. And there were many things that she could have learned, at that time, had there been an entrepreneurial course, had there been people to fund and invest in her business so she could get the right equipment. I'm happy to know that 40 years later, in Dominica, there are many initiatives to help entrepreneurs, but I still think a lot more can be done. Because when I go back to Denmark, so now we're back to Denmark and about 40 years later, this is a case of a startup that has been very successful, and it's based on this thing. Does anybody know what this thing is? Cassava? Tofu, that's a good guess. Well, it's a protein source. And it's not tofu, it's actually protein made from fungus. It's mycoprotein. And mycoprotein has been an overlooked source of protein, but more and more, as there becomes more attention on having climate-friendly protein sources, people are looking to alternatives. And this is from mycelia fungus that is grown and fermented, much as you would ferment beer. And this can be transformed into this very delicious food called tempeh. So they formulate it together with quinoa and carrots and lentils and other flavorings. And I've used it a lot myself, and it's quite tasty. But the idea for this actually came from three very young girls, Anna, Cecilia, and Martina. And Anna and Martina, they came to Denmark to study. So they are from the Czech Republic and Slovenia in Eastern Europe, and there were limited opportunities for them to study, but they could come to Denmark because there is free movement, or there are opportunities to be educated in another country, much like the opportunities you can get through the Connexeus project or the Erasmus program. And so they came to Denmark to study, and Anna and Martina, they met at an innovation course where one of the things they had to do was, how do you make a business? And Martina had the idea that, yes, we could use mycoprotein and formulate it and make a product that could be an alternative to meat, and it would be environmentally friendly. Being foreign and new to Denmark, they realized that one of the limitations was the language, and so they were very excited to have Cecilia, who had a degree in food engineering, Anna was in food nutrition, and Martina was in innovation management and more commercialization. So it was a very good mix of competencies. And so between the three of them, they managed to very quickly make a prototype of the product, apply for grants, and get into an accelerator program, all within the space of 2 weeks from having the idea. So moving quickly is quite essential. And now, Tempeh Foods has partnerships with many of the largest canteens in Denmark. They have won several awards. Their product can be bought in the supermarkets, and it's growing very rapidly. And now they're planning to establish facilities in partnership for manufacturing on a ton scale. So what can we learn from that? There are very many lessons that we can learn. Ideas can come from anywhere. The idea to use fungus as a protein source did not come from any of these three people. It was actually a classmate of Martina in another course who thought that it would be a good idea. So we don't have to have this not invented here syndrome. When we have our ideas, we should share them freely and see how we can get the right competencies to take it forward. The other thing that was quite an advantage is that there was more than one co-founder. And research has shown that a startup is more likely to succeed if you have more than one co-founder, especially if you have complementary skills. And as I mentioned, they had very early partners with industry. They went to a lot of the chefs who helped them test their products and formulated them, and they told them, what would it be like if you were going to use the product in everyday? There's no point developing something and then it doesn't fit into the everyday workflow of the people who are going to use it. They did not reinvent the wheel. Their original idea was actually to use the fermentation process to ferment and make the mycelium themselves. But that was the time of COVID. They had no access to the lab. So they said, oh, let me see if I can buy it instead. And once they started buying it, they thought there was absolutely no reason for them to try to develop their own fermentation process, because that would have just given them so much longer to get to the market. They seized the opportunity quickly. As soon as they formed the group, there was a funding. They could apply for funds with a very short deadline in 2 weeks, and they worked night and day because they had to meet that deadline. If they missed it, they would have to wait another 6 months. They leveraged crowdfunding and angel investors. They quickly got one person who really believed in their idea and gave them some start capital so they could start experimenting with the formulation. But more importantly, in Denmark, there is an extremely supportive entrepreneurial ecosystem. And I will go into what are some of the aspects, the parameters that for an entrepreneurial ecosystem. And as I said in my introductory remarks, a major one is STEM education. I will not go into that. I will leave it to Professor Morten to talk more about that. Another one is collaborations and partnerships. And the collaborations, with the example that I said, it was an industry and a startup collaboration. But you can imagine there are collaborations between the government and the universities, and between the universities and the startups. So it's important to seek out the partners who have what it takes for you to make your product a success. Then, having innovation hubs and accelerator programs is extremely important. In Denmark, there are several innovation hubs, and most of them, they are associated with the university. And what it does, it creates a huge, vibrant atmosphere of innovation, because you can meet with like-minded people, you'll meet with people who have complementary skills, you have people from different companies, different competencies getting together, and then when you have this diversity of perspectives and ideas, then new solutions can arise and come out of it. But it's important to have this physical space where they can get together. And then the accelerator programs are focused on them developing the product, getting from the idea to something that can actually they can begin to test and experiment with. And this was one of the accelerator programs that was run by the university that Martina and the two other friends were a part of. Another very important part is the government policies for founders as well as for investors. It should not be difficult to invest. If there's a lot of red tape and a complicated process, then there's a high likelihood that you will not have sufficient investors. For example, in Denmark, there's been a huge reform of the government policies with respect to investing. For example, there was this very annoying thing that sometimes you would be taxed on the value of the company even before you had a return on your investment. So this has since then been changed. Also, for the entrepreneurs, from their point of view, the start capital for starting a business was extremely high. It was 7,500 euros, and now that's down to 3,000 euros. And the other thing that they did, whenever you sell something, usually you pay a sales tax, and then you have to pass that on. So they have deferred the taxation on the revenue that's brought. The revenue that's brought by the startup. They don't have to pay any taxes on the revenue until they've begun to be profitable. So it's very important that an analysis is done and find out whether there are any gaps. What are the barriers to people becoming entrepreneurs and starting and creating thriving businesses? And it's also important that the policies are sustainable and can outlive or outlast election cycles and political parties. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. Then the last part and the part that I will elaborate a lot more is on the funding. There are several different instruments that you could use to fund your company. A loan from the bank is one way. You can have grants or soft funding. You can also have venture capital, but usually venture capital comes in after you have proven that you have a product on the market that is scalable. And there's also a niche form of financial instruments, which is angel investing, and this is what I will talk more about today. So just to give you an idea of how complicated a supportive entrepreneurial ecosystem is, this is from Denmark, and I'm not going to quiz you on that afterwards. You don't have to study all of it. But I will highlight some of the groupings. So you have capital, the funders, and I've listed some of them. It ranges from crowdfunding to venture capital. Then you have, well, the founders, encouraging them to have an entrepreneurial mindset, to take risks, to start businesses. And then there are events, pitch events, where you bring together founders and investors. And then there are awards, because this is an incentive for a founder or a startup to excel and try to be the best. And many of the awards are financial ones that they can use to grow their businesses. Then it stands to reason that you have universities, and many of the universities have innovation hubs associated with them. And the universities are the source, often the source of the ideas, the fundamental research that can be translated into innovative products. And associated with the universities, or sometimes they actually stand alone, they're sometimes associated with companies. You have the incubators and the accelerators, and the government initiatives. In Denmark, the government will fund certain national clusters, and what that would mean is they would provide the infrastructure, the building, some of the basic equipment that the startups that can use and pay for at a very reduced cost. So, to make it concrete and less abstract, I will highlight one of the examples which could actually be relevant here for Dominica. So this young woman is a woman I met about 6 months ago, and she's from Mexico, but she came to Denmark to study, and she is working on biofertilizers. Especially for legumes like lentils and peas and beans, there is a synergy between the soil bacteria, and it has a fertilizing effect on the plant and the yield. So she is finding a way to optimize how the soil bacteria, what kind of bacteria, what concentration of bacteria is needed so that plants, legume plants, can give higher yield. And that was possible because she could get funding from an organization called Spin Out Denmark. They fund entrepreneurs for 1 year while they work on the product. And also, she was part of an accelerator program at one of the institutes in Denmark. It's called Bio-Innovation Institute. And their tagline is that we bring science to life. So they provide a space where entrepreneurs or founders with ideas, they can get lab space, they can get business mentoring. They set up pitch events where they can be matched together with investors. And she was lucky to be able to be part of this. And it's very exciting to see the growth in her company, and I really hope that she would succeed. Oh, I need to say that the Bio-Innovation Institute was actually funded by the Novo Nordisk Foundation. In Denmark, there are very large foundations from private companies that actually fund research and development activities. Now, many of the founders, when they first make the product, they focus on the local market. And if it goes very well, then they will need to scale. And to scale is a completely different kettle of fish. You need to have the contacts, you need to have the understanding of the market, you need to have partners in this market. And then there's an association called Global Tech Advocates. It's a non-profit organization. And they have chapters all over the world. They have in Vietnam, they have in the US, they have in the Nordics, and it was started in the UK. And just before I came here, 2 weeks before I came here, they had an event in Copenhagen. And one of the things they said is that they are actually looking to expand into the Caribbean. So there is an opportunity for somebody here in Dominica to spearhead being part of a tech advocate for the Caribbean. Because what it does, it gives you access to other collaborators in many different countries. If you want to scale to a different country, they will help you, they will give you advice, and there's a wealth of information and support that you can get from there. So if you want to learn more, then there's the QR code. I can send it out afterwards, or you can scan it now. Then, in terms of collaboration and partnerships, I will present one example from Denmark again. And this, if you probably noticed, most of the examples that I give is based on people who are not from Denmark. And this is just to tell you that if you have a great idea, you can actually move to someplace else to bring it to life. So here you have Sarah. She's actually from Spain, and she and her partner met in mechanical engineering at the Danish Technical University. And they decided they want to make the healthcare system more efficient. They want to give the power back to the nurses and the doctors so that they can spend more time with the patient. So they developed this robot called Buddy. And what Buddy does is to go and fetch the medicine, fetch the things to do the dressing of the wounds, instead of the nurse or the doctor leaving the patient and going to get it. It can be all programmed so the robot can get it themselves. And again, they had a very, very early partnership with some of the hospitals in Denmark. They had to ask several hospitals before they got one that said yes. But that's all you need. You need your first yes. You just need one yes. And the initial idea and design that they had for the robot was completely changed after talking to people who would actually use it. And through this partnership, now they have Buddy deployed in 5 different hospitals in Denmark. So the importance of industrial partnerships at a very early on. And the hospitals, they benefit a lot from that because they don't have to employ more nurses because there's so much work to do, because some of the administrative and non-value adding tasks are given to a robot. Then more about funding. I'm not sure how much you're keeping up with the funding landscape, but right now we're in a period where it is challenging to get venture capital. And so there is a funding gap. You can see that it's declining over the years. This shows 2024. However, if you have a startup that's based on software or AI, then it seems like there's no limit to how much funding that you can get. So AI is very, very hot right now. Many other types of startups or industries are not so prioritized. So this is an area of opportunity. Because the good thing about having a startup that's based on software or AI, your infrastructure needs are relatively low. You need a computer, a stable energy source, and away you go. And the world is your oyster, right? You are not restricted to to just selling in your local markets. And this is just to underpin what I just said. If you look at the deep pink fuchsia bar, this is how much funding goes into software compared to other areas like healthcare or media or IT. So this is a huge opportunity. So going back to the funding, as I said earlier, venture capital is declining. They are very selective. And when they fund AI, usually they fund the huge ideas like OpenAI and DeepSeek. So for the smaller entrepreneurs, and also at the very early age, there is what they call the valley of death. It's the time between the idea when you actually have a prototype. And it's in this area it can be extremely difficult to find funding. And that's where angels, and the FFF stands for fools, friends, and families. It means people who believe in you at a very early stage. And this is where angel investing can really make a difference. Because there are several companies now that are extremely successful, and they would not have been had it not been for the angels who had invested in them in the very early stages before the venture capital came in. And one of them is Trustpilot. How many of you have heard of Trustpilot? Okay. Yeah. It's a platform for evaluating services that are given. It's like a rating, and it's very well known and very well established and well trusted. But they started, this is actually a startup from Denmark, and they got money from an angel investing community in Denmark to get started. And another one, it's Just Eat. I mean, they're so huge, they can afford to have Snoop and Katy Perry doing their advertisement from them. So Just Eat also started in Denmark. They also had angels in the very early stage. And what they do, it's a platform where you can order takeout. That's what it is in all its simplicity. So angel investing can really be fill the funding gap and catalyze sustainable growth. Now, continuing on with angel investing, I have the number 2% here. Does anybody know what that 2% stands for within the context of funding? No? The share of? Close. Well, the 2% tells the percentage of funding that women entrepreneurs, women founders receive. And if you are a founder from a minority community, it's even lower. It's 0.27%. So that means the way VC funding works, usually people fund people who look like them, people who understand. So if you want to have people investing into underrepresented founders, then you need to have investors who can relate to and understand these underrepresented founders. And that is why there is a venture fund called Ada Ventures, named after the physicist or mathematician Ada Lovelace. And they've decided that they want to diversify their investor landscape. And so they have their tagline is that they invest in the best, not just the best connected. Because very often your chances of getting funding depends on who you know and who knows you. So they have this angel program where they deployed it in the UK, and now they've also deployed it in Denmark. And last year they selected 10 angels to invest on their behalf, and I am one of them. So I'm very fortunate that I can invest in 5 companies on behalf of Ada Ventures. And the thinking is that there will be a ripple-on effect. There are many studies that show that women investors, women LPs, they will more invest in female founders, and so on. Even banks, at least the Danish banks, they do their part in doing the funding, closing the funding gap, not just by providing loans, but they also teach people how to become angel investors. So Danske Bank, they have an angel investor academy. And another Nordea, that's another Danish bank. And what they do, they take it a step further. So in addition to teaching some of their customers who have some kind of capital, they're not excessively rich, but they have capital, and they want to have a greater return on their investments than just, the interest that you get. So in addition to training them to be angel investors, they also match them or present opportunities to be matched with founders who are looking for funds. So banks can also play a very important role in promoting angel investing. Now, angel investing, it's like anything else. It's a skill. You don't just wake up one day and say you're going to be an angel investor. I certainly didn't. It was actually not on the cards, and I fell into it by accident. But there are several courses that you can take to learn how to become an angel investor. But the course is not enough. It's very important to be part of a community. And there's a course that I actually taught, and this is a shameless plug. If you want to learn about angel invest, or at least get started, then there's a course that's available at very reduced rates if you use my promo code. So getting the formal education is one thing, but it's also important that you develop the community and have a community of angel investors. In Denmark, there are several angel investors community, and I'm two of them. And what you get from having a community is the education. Because you've read it, you've learned what it is, but it's something else to apply it when you have an actual case in front of you. So they teach you about investing, about the ecosystem, the market trends. They give you tools and templates that you would need. And in the community, we have people with different expertise and skills and competencies, and that will actually stimulate your thinking. And some of them will mentor you. And the more practical thing is you can actually pool your money together with others as an angel investor and invest in what is called a syndicate. So I'm finishing up with a couple of my own investments. And yes, this is exactly what it looks like. It is a menstrual pad, but it's not any menstrual pad. It's a medical device. And I don't know if you notice there's a little strip in the middle here. And what it does, it collects menstrual blood, and that blood will be sent to a lab where it can be tested for different diseases. And it's a company called Quinn, and then with the blood can be tested for early indication of diabetes, cervical cancer, endometriosis, STIs and uterine fibroids, and they also have other diseases that they can do. But the impact is that it makes sure that women, wherever they are located, whatever their socioeconomic status, can have early detection. Because this medical device, it's made of paper, it's quite inexpensive. And this is what appealed to me, the impact it has on improving the lives of women and making sure that we all can have early detection for some very, very deadly diseases. They do a lot of research, and then they collaborate with countries all over the world because they get different data just to see how different populations respond to early interventions for different diseases. Another invention that I think could also be relevant for Dominica, but also it's completely software-based, so it could have actually come out of Dominica. And it's called My Personal Health Bank, and what they do, it's almost like an electronic journal. So when you go to the doctor, I don't know if they still do that here, but when I used to go with my mother, you have a little exercise book where they write, and then there is so much opportunity for mistakes. So this will give you a centralized place where you can have all your health data. And it's in the control of the patient. So this is just an example of what it looks like. You can access it from your phone. It's web-based. And it's, again, quite inexpensive. Vertical farming. I know we do a lot of farming here. But the farming, it's subject to the whims of nature. You know, if there's a terrible hurricane, lots of rain, then it will affect the yield, right? So one of the things that Morten and I saw when we were in Vietnam, and that was vertical farming. And it's extremely low cost. You can see it's made of, water piping. And this is what it looks like. If you zoom in, they can grow all sorts of vegetables there. And the thing that they actually grow in, it's reused rock wool, the insulation that you use for homes. So it's all very low cost. And furthermore, they have small units that people can have in their homes. You can have it in your backyard, so you don't need a lot of space, and you can grow your fresh vegetables. This is how they grow fungus. They have old plastic bottles that would normally be littering. They fill it with sawdust, and then they wrap it to preserve the moisture, and they can grow mushrooms, which are rich in protein and fiber. This is an example from Colombia. That's a local herb that's good for the skin. In collaboration with the university, they have formulated a cream that they actually sell. So we have a wealth of knowledge in local medicine. This is something that we could be doing. And then you have others in the health space, and they're software-based. Clue is a company that is for women to monitor their fertility cycles. The one, Joy, it's for healthcare professionals. Instead of writing down everything, you can actually dictate it. It will book your appointments for you. It will transpose your notes, your voice notes into actual written notes. So it makes the administration of health services very, very efficient. Then you have one in EdTech. They help you make educational videos. All of that, you just need a computer. Then you have bank. Luna, this is a completely online bank. Okay, I'm not saying. But, that's one way, because it makes it so much more efficient. As well as Flutterwave, it's a payment system that started out of Africa and is doing extremely well. So there are endless possibilities, and some of them you don't need heavy infrastructure. You need an idea, you need people who believe in it, and you need to work really, really, really hard. And so this is what I have. I hope you've been inspired. And as I said, I focused mainly on the commercial aspects of it, but there are several other factors that need to be into place to be able to have a thriving entrepreneurial ecosystem. And now I will hand it over to Morten to talk about the education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here to follow up on Phaedria's talk. First of all, I will not show any molecules floating around in space. I will mainly be concerned with an other type of investment. Phaedria alluded to it a couple of times during her talk, but the investment in education. Because education and investment in education is the one investment with the highest return. Over time, it will show up in your GDP if you have a high level of education. So this investment, even if it doesn't pay off tomorrow, it will develop the society eventually. And this has been shown many times. It drives innovation and growth, and it enhances the social stability to have educated people with an informed state of mind. It's also countries that prioritize this experience, and that's examples of that is South Korea, Finland, Poland, and Denmark and Vietnam. These countries have invested heavily in their education, and in particular, I can take the particular example of Vietnam, which was considered sort of a developing country. Today, it's a forceful engine of production and innovation. And this is due to the strategy where they are actually both having the education locally in the country, but they are also sending a lot of their students to different universities around the world to learn what happens there. And I think here with Connexeus, this is a real opportunity for the Caribbean islands to send their young people to the best universities in the world, in Europe, where they can actually be supported by the program of Connexeus, which is called Erasmus. So you get higher growth rates, you get improved productivity and greater financial resilience in case of crisis. And as you all know, we are at a learning crisis right now due to some very strange political decisions. Science skills correlate with long-term economic growth. And that means that social cohesion, political participation, overall well-being, and sustainability is directly depending on our understanding of the science. Not as a top scientist in the country, but as all of you. And then the positive externality is that it goes far beyond the individual, far beyond each of you, but to the society in total. So education is something that the society has to invest in, and everybody in the society has to support it. While infrastructure, healthcare, and technology investments are crucial, education uniquely empowers individuals for innovation, adaptation, contribution, and multi-sector cohesion. That means that you start to get several different areas of innovation and production which can support each other within the community. So this could have huge societal consequences. It's a tool for societal progress for all. Climate issues and environment, the right political decisions are made because you are choosing the right politicians for carrying out the services for your country. So there's sort of an electoral control with malfunction and corruption. Chemistry is also getting a central role in our society, which I think is very, very important. And the reason I think of that is because chemistry is everything. I literally mean everything. Whenever you feel hungry, when you are tired, when you are in love, it's all molecules that interact with each other inside our body. Yeah. And I think that this is very important to realize also that all our productions, whether you are a concrete worker, whether you work with a bakery, wherever you are working, you are actually handling chemistry every day, and the chemistry is what can improve your products, what can make your products competitive. So individual consequences of that is, of course, that resource opportunity limitations and sharing, that is resource sharing, resource opportunities, and so on. What do you have accrued products or raw products here in Dominica that is useful for developing your industries and so on. Also the crafts, as I said before, whether you're a bakery or you work with concrete, it's important what you do there, and your chemical understanding is important at all levels. It has importance for construction, for agri-food investment and technology. Healthy lifestyles is also something that Phaedria alluded to, and that's also empowered by your understanding of chemistry. So we want our young talents to become good within the STEM area. And how do we first of all define the talent? The talent is, of course, a lot of knowledge. This is how we have been teaching people over the years, more and more knowledge stacked on top of the knowledge we already have. So we are learning factual knowledge, but that is maybe not the most important thing to learn today, because the global situation has changed. We have today an internet, we have AI that help us. We can just ask the question, we get all the answers back. That is not what is really needed. What is needed is your ability to be creative and imagine, what can we do with this? What can we do with this knowledge? Our ability to think out of the box, be creative, and this imagination here is really, really important. And that is something that the children have from a very early age. So Children should actually learn chemistry. And now you think they can't learn chemistry because that's a very complex thing. But actually, chemistry is a very simple thing. If you dive into the world of chemistry with animation and see water molecules and how they behave with each other, I'm not showing it on screen, but I can show it here. Water molecules that move around in space and interact with each other. Why is water a liquid? Just to understand why water is a liquid is an important understanding, because water should be a gas, and it is a liquid. Hello? Yeah, so I think that knowledge is not so important anymore. The more important things is a way that we teach our children to have critical thinking, be able to collaborate together and provide the environment that is necessary for creating a new business out of a research opportunity. And identity starts very early on, so I think this should be done by animation from the first grades. So we should start teaching them. When a child is born, it comes out to this completely chaotic world, doesn't understand a word of it, because it doesn't have any words. Actually, it learns its language by images, whole sentences that it stores. It also learns the world around it by imaging that is storing and storing and storing and starting to associate these images with previous images, building up a mirror of the external world to be able to navigate it. And that's what you have all been doing during your childhood. If we take that opportunity during the first years of school and teach people the three-dimensional world, we can actually show them what it looks like when we dive into the proteins, when we dive into the cell and look into the nuclei, how the molecules are interacting and so on. This is important knowledge. It's just as important as math and reading and writing. So it starts very early. It's largely emotional, so we have to put emotion into our teaching. From parents and friends, you get your identity, and it's important that we guide the identity building with the children. You get it from belief and authority. There, it's very important to balance that belief and authority with knowledge, give them actual facts to know, and to balance both their beliefs and their belief in authority. So from knowledge and also misinformation, and that's very important to realize that we have a lot of identity building today from misinformation. More than 80% of the videos on YouTube are misinformation created by AI. Okay? Yeah. So you have to match societal needs, optimize identity selection, remove external pressures from the kids. Don't examine them every year, 3 times a year. Kids are not suited for that. They need experience. They need to have nice experiences with the visualization of the things they have to learn. Balance the knowledge and authority and give positive reinforcement as self-esteem. This is really important if you want them to build on that later on. We have in Denmark 15 regional top chemistry companies, and they actually are responsible for about 80% of the revenues in Denmark. So I think that it's quite important to realize here that this is because Denmark has heavily invested in STEM and in this ability to build and think critically. All of these areas require chemistry knowledge. Medicine, materials, food sector, energy production, agriculture, devices, electronics, defense, and going green. Going green is very important in Denmark, and I think that is where a lot of the common ground between the Caribbean and Denmark could actually be positioned. So we can make new sustainable materials. We can make new products, processes which are also sustainable in the global environment. energy. Denmark has a lot of development of catalysts that can help us in the energy sector. Increased and improved food production, utilizing maybe even your seaweed out there. Textile and clothing is a huge problem in the world today, and particularly in the use once and throw away kind of culture that has developed. I think that this is important parts. Transportation. We are in Denmark working very hard on making green energy for shipping. The huge container ships should be going on green, and that's going to happen. But I think that these are the areas, and I would like to show you one example where we have done a little bit which we thought was very cool, and that is these materials which are made from barley straw. So we take the barley straw after the harvest, and so this is exclusively a laboratory project where we take the barley straw and the fillers, which are parts of small dust particles. We mix it with soybean acrylate up here, and then we glue it together in a polymerization process. And we form these plates here, for example, or items which are completely tightly bound. It's a very strong material. A beam of wood this size can be replaced by a beam this size of this material. So it can be used in construction, it can be used in furniture, all sorts of things. And it's biodegradable. So in a short period of time, when you lose it out in the nature, it disappears because it's made of cellulose. So that is really nice, and it can be made from banana fibers, sisal, hemp, manila, coir, any kind of cellulose fiber that you can think of. You can actually make this kind of material. And it's made from, as I said, soya oil and cellulose, and a little bit of chemicals, about 2% of chemicals. Yeah, so in order to just finish up here, we need innovation hubs and science parks. This is something that you should consider at any kind of level, that you can smoothen up the process for innovation. Investment-friendly policies, so that's your PM and other people in the government that needs to actually relax their pressure on innovation and small businesses. Collaborations and partnerships. So here you have to look maybe also overseas for collaborators if you want to start up. Funding, and you have heard all about that. STEM education and research, in particular STEM education at the first step, is very, very important. And the right mindset and culture for innovation and risk-taking, that means all of you. So with that, I would like to thank you from Phaedria and me, and we have been very happy to be here. We love Dominica, we love the Caribbean, so thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give another round of applause for our presenters, Dr. Phaedria Marie St and Professor Morten Meldal. We will have a question and answer segment now, and so I invite those who are supposed to be helping me to get the chairs ready for presenters to go ahead and do that, while I just give a few instructions in terms of how we are going to organize this. Now, we've heard the lectures already. We don't need a lecture from you. So if you have a question, I'm saying that because I know my people. So if you have a question, we invite you to briefly ask your question to the presenters, and they will be able to engage you. I have two members of staff who will be assisting in that. Kedisha is on my left here, your right, and Lisa is on my right here, your left. So if you'd like to ask a question, you would just raise your hand and they will acknowledge you and come to you with the microphone. All right? And so I think our presenters are ready to be seated. So I invite them to come and take their seats on stage.
Where do you win?
And if you have questions, I invite you to raise your hands now so that my staff members can acknowledge you and hand over the microphone. Oh, don't be shy, I know
Any
you have
kind
questions.
of question
Yes.
will do.
Yes. If you could say your name when you have the mic, and then go ahead and briefly state your question.
Good evening. My name is Phaedria Marie, and I'd like to address myself to Phaedria. I see your second name is Marie. Was that your surname by any chance?
No,
At
my
any time?
middle name is Marie.
Huh?
My middle name is Marie.
The
My
middle
surname
name.
is St. Hilaire.
Yours Marie.
Hmm?
Yes, so you might be my cousin. Okay. The second thing I would like to say that this is a presentation that is opportune. Yes, that
Put it more to
it's a piece. It's an presentation that's opportune, and because I'm part of a group of economists around the Caribbean who have formed something called the Caribbean Circle for Economics of Innovation, and what we are trying to do is to present papers and stimulate a culture of innovation in the Caribbean, in particular based on the things that are available here. We mentioned software, and I would say I have a podcast where I had an interview with a gentleman who is into software building, and had a bit of a argument with him in that software and medicine. We do not have a proper medical record system. A project and a contract was just given to build a medical record system for Dominica. We have computer programmers in Dominica. The contract is given to a foreign firm. Okay, I've written some papers on the whole business of the digital economy and so on. When that contract could have been given to a Dominican company. Part of the justification is the companies here do not have sufficient experience. Well, how are we going to get experience if we never do anything? Not to mention, of course, software is never a completed job. Yes, it's always, you do this first version, and then there are errors and bugs which you correct. Otherwise, Microsoft wouldn't be sending you updates every 3 months for the stuff, because as good as it is, it has bugs. So we develop it, and unless we are allowed to do it and fail and do it again, we're going to be staying exactly where we are. We will not innovate, and we will not progress.
Yep. Well, thank
So
you for that.
A question?
Well, the question was basically to ask if you agree with me.
I think you have to set up a partnership in such a way that there is a transfer of knowledge to the locals. And as you said, after the project is implemented, you do need to continuously innovate on it, as well as maintain it and all the debugging and all the problems that arise. So we have to be very careful when we think about how we set up these partnerships, that there is an incentive and there is some sort of sustainability that the local community can actually learn and grow and develop through that.
And it's also important who are the contractors that goes to the external partner rather than trying to make a collaboration, because that is, of course, also a political issue, right? And I think that there's also an opportunity rather than a conflict. There's an opportunity to send, because it can be a huge task to make something like that. So it can be an opportunity to actually send some of the local people to this company and having them back again to run the system in Dominica. There could also be an opportunity for having people from the company coming to Dominica, engaging with a group of people here in the programming community. But it all depends on the expertise that are available.
We have another question. Yes?
Okay, hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am Amika Cognet, the young entrepreneur, the CEO of Loving Productions, and I have a question for either one of you. I actually have two, but I can ask them together. So, are there any angel funding opportunities right now for Dominica? I know you mentioned a lot about that, and I believe a lot of the entrepreneurs that I see in here might be really interested in those opportunities. Some of us might be starting midway in our business growth, and some persons have maybe reached the climax where they'd like to expand. And so I'm hoping that you can probably tell us more about the angel funding opportunities for us here in Dominica. And I'm also interested in knowing, are there any, now that you're here, because you're representing, the UN, etc., from away, are there any opportunities currently for us in terms of other education opportunities than what we're already being offered, especially within the field of, as you said, business and innovation hubs, etc., through short programs, etc.? Are there any opportunities now that maybe after today, within the next few weeks, that we ourselves here in Dominica can probably sign up to or have privy to that information so we ourselves can get that? And to just answer Mr. McMurray's plight, I feel that all of us share the same opinion on that, is that I feel in the Caribbean, and not just Dominica, that we fail to empower our own. And through different, I believe through different meetings like this, if we have them more often here in Dominica and in maybe a wider space, that we might be able to touch more persons or reach out to more persons who might be empowered themselves. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. That was a really good question. The second question about the opportunities from the EU within business, I think I will defer that to the EU representatives here. But the first part of your question about angel investing, I think first on the local level, to my knowledge, there's not a structured approach to angel investing. I think some entrepreneurs have gotten money maybe by an auntie or an uncle or, that sort of thing, a friend, right? But I think that's one of the things that need to be developed. And I spoke to Dr. Joseph about, developing an angel investing course. So, maybe the bank can even play a part in that. And I understand there's also an entrepreneur, there's different organizations that specifically target and promote the concept of angel investing locally in Dominica. Then the next step would also be to tap into the Dominican or the Caribbean diaspora. There are many people like me who want to contribute and help, but we don't know what the opportunities are. And as I showed the examples in Denmark, having an organization or a platform where you can bring the business ideas with the potential funders, it's key. So that sort of things has to be established here in Denmark.
Dominica.
Sorry, in Dominica. And in terms of getting investors or angels from overseas, again, it has to do with the exposure. How could you bring your idea in front of the eyes of angels who exist in other countries? I don't know the answer to that. It can be a very difficult and challenging process. I mentioned the Global Tech Advocate. I think that's something that could be developed if a chapter is made in the Caribbean. Then it will expose entrepreneurs in Denmark to investors and relevant people in the network globally.
In Dominica.
In Dominica?
You said in Denmark.
Yeah. I'm very happy to be here. Trust me. Even if I keep saying Denmark, I love it that I'm here.
Okay, good evening. My name is Bernard Ito. My question is aimed at how do we block certain gaps that we have, leaks out of the innovation entrepreneurial system in Dominica. The first issue is, I think we have to recognize that there is a difference between schooling and educating with the relevant human capital development, right? In Dominica, we're well schooled, We have probably 98% schooling now and universal secondary education. But going to school and sitting in school and learning facts, often obsolete facts or irrelevant facts for your national context, is not the same thing as developing the human capital that is relevant, 21st century, forward-looking, innovative, creative, imaginative. And we need to understand in Dominica that what we need to do is to develop human capital rather than focus on schooling. And so the metrics need to be different. Rather than measuring how many students are going to school, we should look at the outcomes, how competent, creative, innovative the students are, and find ways to measure that rather than some CXC business.
Exactly, the measurement should be whether they pass the exam with an A grade.
That's right. The metrics has to be changed. So that's the first comment, and you can address how we could address that. The second one is there are many brilliant Dominicans all over the world. You're clearly one of them, right? And I know many myself. I spent many years myself in corporate America doing advanced engineering work. And there are many of us out there. So we seem to be individually brilliant, but collectively, in our headquarters, Dominica, sort of mediocre, right? The system is mediocre, the outcomes, even though we have brilliant individuals. So we have to ask ourselves, what is the dynamic of that allows us to be individually brilliant? It's not an accusation in any way. I know the part of the answer is we're plugged into different systems, because when you're plugged into an innovation system that leverages your competence and your capabilities, then you can produce enormously. But when you're plugged into an innovation system like Dominica, which is not yet focused on that, then your productivity dramatically decreases, right? Because you just do not have that support system to be productive. The third thing is, if we do get good human capital development, we lose it. Because again, we do not have the economic situation or the social innovation system to maintain and allow these people to develop lives that are meaningful for them in Dominica. So our situation is a little complex. It is not simply develop an innovation ecosystem, which is very important, but it's a bigger socio-economic consideration. It's almost like in economic development when you have to do the big push, several things simultaneously, right, in order to stem and stop the bleeding. So we have to have a system that allows that talent to remain at home and to be productive at home and to have the human capital relevant to home. And so these are the issues I hope you can expand a little bit on as we look. I completely agree. Human capital development and innovation entrepreneurial ecosystem is critical to our development. It is what will take us to the next level. But we have to have people who understand how to do that at all levels, all the way up to the top. And we have to have an understanding that is a complex, technical, socio system that has to be solved at many levels. So you can comment further on that.
Thank you. I mean, you said a lot of critical things and important things, and yes, you are right in many ways. The way I see it is, it starts with the will, the collective will to want to do better. And I don't know how to do that, I'll be quite honest, but it's something that Dominicans living here, as well as Dominicans abroad, have to come together to say this is what we want to do. Because if there's not the collective vision, if there's not the collective will to make the changes that are necessary, if people are always pushing back when you want to innovate or change things or change the education system, then we're not going to move forward. And if you look at countries like, take a country like Singapore. I mean, Singapore was... Exactly. But I think the one thing that really helped them, it's every single person in Singapore said, I want to do this. And every single person could see the role that they had to play. So it starts with having the right mindset that we want to do it, and we are doing it together as Dominicans. Starts from the early stages in the schooling. And I know there's a lot of politics, a lot of stuff going on in Dominica. And it's not going to be easy to transcend those kind of divide. It's not an easy task, but if you have the will and to have the dialogue and the discussion about that, and to invite the people who are willing to help Dominica as a community, not go in there, capitalize on the division and make their own profits and then, continue to take out of the country. That's not the kind of partners that you want. You want partners who are really interested in seeing Dominica grow and thrive.
We have time for one more question.
Can I
I'm
just
being
comment?
told. Okay, well, we'll take Mr. Meldal, and we will not have time for that question. But don't worry, person, you can always answer that question in the cocktail. But go ahead, Wanda.
Just very shortly, and then we have the last question. I think it's very important also to recognize that it's necessary in a totally changing global world to also change the internal structure in the country. For example, I think it's very important that the people in power from the government, the education, and the industry that is here in Dominica already, that they come together and figure out how we can promote this innovation system, that it would actually benefit everyone in the society. If they are like competing about the same funding and so on, it's not going to work. Last question.
Last question.
Okay, thank you very much. Congratulations, and we're happy to have you.
Thank
Daughter
you.
of the soil come here and to educate us. I've written what I want to say, so guaranteed it's not going to go over. It's not going to go over time. Okay, so one of the things which stuck out to me was science support for innovation. Manufacturing opens doors to innovation as it relates to SDG 12, which is responsible consumption and production. So apart from my day job, I operate a small business producing oils from coconut and moringa. So for example, from the coconut oil, the shells have been proven to have a wide array of high value, high-end products coming from the byproducts, just the shells. Now, left over from the moringa is the seed cake, which is now being researched, according to my own research, as a purifying agent for water. Question, what do I do? What do I do with the moringa seed cake after extracting the oil? I do not have the access to science to innovate with the moringa seed cake. So you can imagine what I could possibly do with it. But the science says that it can be used to purify water. So use the mic closer to my mouth. Yeah. All right. So we look forward to whatever support those of us who are innovating greenly with our byproducts, hashtag reusable waste, hashtag SDG 12. So funding for product testing. We do have a chemistry lab at the Dominica Bureau of Standards in Dominica, chemistry and biology lab that's available for testing of local products. Then again, funding. So I saw your chart with the area in pink, which shows that most of the funding goes towards software, AI, etc. But in Dominica, in a small island developing state like our country, what we are doing, what we are innovating is local products. So we have our cocoa, we have our coffee, we have our coconuts, we have our straw, we have whatever is available in the local environment. That is what is the current state of affairs of us as entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
But the funding that's available is to the pink part, which is software. So I'm just leaving that open as something to look at.
Yeah. Let me clarify that. I said software gets a lot of the funding, and the reason I mentioned that because it's a relatively low infrastructure type of business to run. I was just showing that this is an example of something that could be done in Dominica. But all the other areas also received funding in health, in manufacturing, and so on. So just so you clarify that.
Okay. All right. But our current state of affairs is we are innovating based on probably the future. The
Yeah.
new phone take it with the AI, but we know we are innovating based on local products. So I just want to put that out there, and thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so thank you everyone for your wonderful questions. And again, there will be more opportunities for asking more questions when we get to the cocktail section of things. This has been Connexeus 2025 Talk Series, a collaborative effort of the University of the West Indies, the European Union, and the National Bank of Dominica Limited. I wish to thank all of you for being with us here this evening. We thank Her Excellency for her presence here. We thank our presenters, Dr. St. Hilaire and Dr. Meldal. And we also thank you, the members of our audience. And we wish you a safe journey home after tonight's cocktail. Thanks, everyone, and all the best.